Alright, prepare yourselves, for you are about to witness true art be created. The world's best ever NFT. Yes. And throw in a little bit of that. And then just a little over here. Yeah. Okay. And then for the final touch, here, and then here. Boom!
Okay, I like it, Picasso.
Okay. So, jokes aside, I did actually want to talk about NFTs. Now, if you're still confused as to what an NFT is or how it works, I made a whole video about it. I made the information super digestible, and I'll leave it down in the description below. But the really abbreviated version is it is digital art that you can both buy and sell. That's it. Now, if you've spent any amount of time on the internet at all, and you've even just briefly been to or passed by one of these accounts that are focused on financial or investing or something along those lines, then odds are you are fully aware that the opinion on NFTs are deeply polarized. Like, it is right down the middle line. You either have people, for the most part, who either just really love them and think they're the best thing that's ever going to happen and they will never ever fail them, or they're the people who really hate them to the point where they think it's like the end of the world. Maybe not the end of the world, but they really hate them and they think it will spell doom for everybody who gets involved in the NFTs in the long run. And the thing is that people on both sides, you see a lot of people who, in general, do know what they're talking about. Like, you see people who do know what they're talking about that really like NFTs and who really dislike NFTs. But they're very polarized. Like, I have seen almost nobody that's even relatively down the middle. As far as I know, I might be the only one. But because of that, I think that a lot of people who aren't too familiar with this topic get very confused. Like, they'll go in and they just see people who just strongly hate it or strongly like it and they don't know who to believe. So in this video, I kind of wanted to go over why NFTs could fail and why they could succeed. So people who are kind of on the outside looking in can understand why people are feel so strongly about NFTs one way or the other. So first things first. One thing we have to understand is that NFTs operate really just like any other object ever, at least from an economic standpoint, right? So, for example, take this ruby. Alright, that's the best ruby I can do in under 10 seconds. Give me a break here. Anywho, so what dictates the price of this ruby? Well, if you've taken any economics class ever, then you probably know what I'm about to say. Supply and demand. So, really quickly, the way this works is that if supply goes up, then the price of the item goes down because there's more of it and they're easier to get. If the supply goes down, then they become more expensive because they're harder to get. Now, for demand. If demand goes up, then they become more expensive because more people want it and more people will be competing to get it. And if demand goes down, then it becomes cheaper because less people want it and there'll be less competition to acquire the ruby. This is how all items work. And you essentially get the price by looking at the supply and demand, and when they meet here, that is the price you get. Now, all things work like this, including, and this is the part that throws people off, money. So, take the euro, for instance. If I have a certain amount of euros, then that will dictate the price or the value of the euro. If the mint decides to print more euros, then the euro becomes less valuable. I did a whole video on as to why you can't just print more money, because I know that confuses, understandably so, a lot of people. But again, the short of it is The more euros there are, the less buying power of each euro, and vice versa. And believe it or not, the same thing happens with Bitcoin, right? If more Bitcoin's mined, then the less valuable it becomes, vice versa. And the reason it's so valuable right now is because everybody wants it and is currently using it, because demand is so high for the Bitcoin. That's what makes Bitcoin valuable. So what this means is NFTs also work like this. The only reason NFTs have any value is because everybody wants them. And I again, made a whole video about it down in the description below. But that's what gives NFTs their value. If tomorrow everybody woke up and said, yeah, I don't want NFTs anymore, they'll become completely useless. And this is true for everything. Like, in any country, if those people wake up and decide they don't want to use that currency anymore, there's practically nothing the government can really do about it. Really. Like, if they don't want to use it anymore, that's it. That currency is entirely worthless. This can theoretically happen with any currency, with any item in the entire world. It really is that simple. It's that simple to make anything completely worthless. Now, is it going to happen with any of the currencies? Almost definitely not. It's very, very unlikely any of the currencies will be devalued that much simply because everybody decides they don't want to use it anymore. It's, again, technically possible, but for the most part, probably not something you need to worry about. And the same thing goes for Bitcoin. So, what's the deal with NFTs? Why is everybody so polarized with them? Well, okay, so the thing is, unlike Bitcoin, you can't really use it as a form of currency. So Bitcoin, people are a lot more certain of, because even though you can mine it and people are treating it as investment, people can divide it into increments and use it as a currency. And we're starting to move into the point where we start to move Bitcoin as opposed to any other monetary system, whether it be the dollar, the euro, the pound, the peso, whatever. People are starting to use it like those currencies. And that's why most people, myself included, are relatively certain that you're probably going to be safe using Bitcoin as a currency. Now, will it go down in value at some point? More than likely. Because Bitcoin is still continuously being mined. At some point, people are going to lose interest in it, and eventually the price is going to go down. By how much of a margin, it's kind of hard to say. I could sit here going through a bunch of theories and calculations, but yeah, more than likely at some point Bitcoin will go down in value, and then it will go up again, just like every other currency. People don't realize this because they primarily just use their own currency within their own country, but all currencies fluctuate like crazy. One day, the euro is worth 0.35 of a dollar. The next day, it's worth 0.20 of a dollar. And it usually ranges with that. And people actually try to make money off of trying to predict how, currency, they'll actually go trade in their own currency. When the other currency is worth more, come back and trade it back into their own currency to somehow get more out of it. So people treat regular money as investments as well. This is not a new thing with Bitcoin. It's just become really popular because Bitcoin's the hot new thing. But more or less, that's how all monetary things work. That's how all physical items work. The thing with NFTs, though, right, is that you can't really use it as a currency. Now, you can trade it in for something. Yeah, that's true. Like, I can give you something in exchange for your NFT, but that's a little bit more like, for instance, say I have this super rare Pokemon card of a Blastoise. I got 10 seconds to write these, guys, okay? Give me a break with my art. I promise you I'm better if I get like 3 hours to actually work on whatever I'm drawing. But regardless, say I have the super rare Blastoise cards, and I decide, hey, I'll give you my super rare Blastoise card for that super fancy new phone that you have. And that's what it's like trying to use an NFT to pay for something. It's not really being treated as a currency. It's more like an item. And that's mainly because you can't divide NFTs into smaller increments. Like Bitcoins, you can trade with 0.5 of a Bitcoin if you so chose, but you can't do it with NFTs. It's just not physically possible. So when it comes to NFTs, it's entirely based on the fact as to whether or not people are going to keep up using it. And this is the point these two communities really start to argue. The people who love NFTs and the people who despise them. It really comes down to whether or not it's going to remain a popular thing in the long term. People who despise them say that no, it's not. We have no idea when it's going to crash, but it's going to come down soon, and everybody who has money in NFTs is going to immediately lose them. While the people who love them say, no, it's a new thing. It's going to remain a thing for a very long while, all for the foreseeable and past that future. Therefore, you need to get into it now while you still monetarily can. Now, I'll start with, it's very much technically possible for it to remain a thing, right? There's nothing physically preventing it from remaining a staple. Because if you think about it, the way people are trading and auctioning off NFTs is pretty much the same thing that they're doing with modern art, right? You guys have all seen it, where there are people standing around with those signs and they're in front of that really weird painting that seems like a child could have drawn it, and they're just, calling out super crazy numbers, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. I don't think 10,000's a number. Anyways, point is that they're all auctioning off for this art piece, and I'm going to try to abbreviate it. I went in depth as to how making money off of art auctions work in the NFT video down below, but the really abbreviated version is that I can buy an item from an artist, I'll take it, and because I paid a lot for it and I have other pieces of art, then the other pieces of art will also go up because that piece of art sold for a lot of money, and then when somebody else buys it, my other piece of art by the same artist are going to go up even more. It's this whole thing. But the point is that this system for physical art has been a thing for, as far as I know, centuries. For centuries, people have been doing this. And from what it looks like, people are going to continue to do this for centuries to come. So, really, this is how NFTs are working. It's just all digital now, right? You put up an NFT for sale, you can either sell it directly for an agreed upon price, or you can put it up for auction and a bunch of people will bid for it. It's just not as entertaining because there's not a really fast talking man in the front going, 500, 500, do I have 500, 600, 600, do I have 600, 700? That's really the only difference. Fundamentally speaking, it's pretty much the same thing as far as I can tell for an NFT. So, again, there's nothing physically saying that it's impossible for the NFTs to remain a popular thing in the long term and for it to continue to be profitable for anybody who comes into it. But on the same note, there's also nothing saying that everybody's not just going to lose interest in the NFT. Because, on the other hand, the NFT, right, it's a new thing. Now, I mean, yeah, it fundamentally works like what I just described, but as for the concept and how it exists, it's fundamentally a new thing that we're all still trying to get used to. And when it comes to stuff like that, you really never know how it's going to come out. I mean, even when it makes sense for it to stay a staple, sometimes it doesn't. I'll give you an example. Everybody remembers CDs, right? Like those things, the discs that you pop them in and they spin and they make the videos. Yeah, everybody knows what those are. Do you know what a laser disc is? No. Well, they were admittedly bigger, but they were also a fundamentally better way of storing storage because it provided higher quality. It basically did what the CD and DVD did, but in more information, with better quality. That's what it was. So you'd think that the laser disc would outlast the CD and the DVD. Nope. That went way of the dodo almost immediately. And this happens with a lot of stuff. Like, several trends, several inventions that people thought were going to be staples when it first came out, they just kind of just forgot about them immediately. And there's really nothing saying that people aren't going to be like, yeah, this was interesting while it lasted. I'm done with it. And as soon as everybody does that, everybody who invested hundreds upon thousands, and in a lot of cases even millions of dollars, will be out that money because everybody lost interest. Nobody wants any more NFTs. That drives down the value. Ergo, you're kind of just left with a bunch of ones and zeros that are pretty much worthless. So it's kind of hard. Oh, dang it. It's kind of hard to say whether or not it's definitively going to go away or not. But it's kind of surprising to me how strongly people feel about one way or the other when it could kind of really go both ways. I'm honestly kind of at a loss as to which way it's going to go. I'm personally kind of sort of leaning to it's going to stay a thing for at least a little while, just because it seems like a convenient way to do the art thing, but just easier. So I'm thinking it's probably going to stay a while, but there's no guarantee that's actually what's going to happen. There's a very, very good chance it could all just go away and everybody with an NFT just, loses all the money they originally sold it for. And then they'll only be able to sell it for however much it's worth at the time. It could be anywhere from $100 to $5 for an NFT they paid several millions of dollars for. So hopefully that gave you some insight into what this huge debate is around the NFT and why everybody's so, just totally off the rails about it. Well, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to have to go soon since I have to pick up some binary paint for my new NFTs. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell button. I post every other week. And until next time, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.